He could have stayed completely hidden after the murder, but he didn't. He contacted his uncle, and that one message changed everything. Then he vanished, a top Chinese university student, a future no one questioned. So what led him to take the life of his own mother? Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Leah. Today's story is about Wu Xieyu. In early February 2016, Wu Xieyu contacted his relatives. He said he and his mother, Xie Tianqing, were returning to China from Boston. They were expected to arrive at Putian railway station on February 6. The family was asked to pick them up for Chinese New Year. On the day, relatives waited at the station, but neither of them showed up. Their phones were off. At first, no one was worried. Some thought they had gone straight back to their apartment in Fuzhou or simply changed plans without telling anyone. But that explanation didn't last. That night, the family went to their home. They knocked on the door. They called out. No response, feeling uneasy. They called the police. At first, police considered a financial motive. Relatives said they had borrowed a large amount of money for studying abroad, but that idea didn't last long. Police interviewed people who had been in contact with them. The statements didn't match. When the family checked with Xie Tianqing's school, they were told she had already resigned and left for the United States, but there was no record confirming she had actually traveled. On February 14th, police entered the apartment with the family. Inside, everything was still. The apartment was neatly arranged, as if nothing had happened. In the master's bedroom, they found Xie Tianqing's body. She had been wrapped in layers of plastic and bed sheets. Between them, the deodorized and activated charcoal had been placed. Near the entrance, a hidden camera and motion alarm had been installed. It allowed someone to monitor anyone approaching the apartment in real time. At that point, police understood this was no longer a missing person case. It was something far more deliberate. Back in late June 2015, Wu Xieyu started buying supplies online in large quantities. He ordered different kinds of knives, kitchen knives, scalpels, carving knives, and saw blades. He also bought waterproof clothes, plastic sheets, protective suits, and medical uniforms. Everything had a purpose for what he was planning. In early July, during his summer break, he returned home to Fuzhou. On the surface, nothing had changed, but by then, the plan was already in motion. On July 10th, around 5 p.m., Xie Tianqing came home from work. She bent down to change her shoes at the door. Wu Xieyu attacked her with a dumbbell bar. She died at the scene. He didn't leave. Instead, he stayed in the apartment and used the supplies he had prepared to handle what came after. Then he began building a story to cover everything. In mid-July, relatives started receiving messages from Wu Xieyu. He said he had been accepted as an exchange student at MIT and would go to the United States for his final year. He also said his mother would go with him, and they would leave on July 25th. Not long after, he began sending messages from Xie Tianqing's phone, pretending to be her. The tone matched hers. In the messages, he asked the relatives for money for overseas expenses and requested that the funds be transferred to her account. In total, about 1.44 million yuan was transferred. By late July, he was still seen on campus in Fuzhou. When people spoke to him, he repeated the same story. He said he was preparing to go abroad and had come back briefly to handle things. His mother, he said, had already gone to Beijing. Because of his academic record and his usual behavior, no one questioned it. In the following weeks, he handled his mother's resignation paperwork. In August, he forged a resignation letter using words cut from her diary. In October, the school received an official resignation form mailed from Shanghai. It looked completely real. He also organized a farewell dinner in her name and invited her colleagues. Everything made it look like she was simply leaving to go abroad with her son. While everyone outside believed the story, the two stayed inside the apartment. The plan could have worked. However, he still created the story about returning from Boston and left small clues behind. Why he did that? As the deception began to fall apart, he left Fuzhou He used a false identity and took the money with him. That was the start of his life on the run. As the investigation moved forward, police slowly began chasing Wu Xieyu's movements. After he left Fuzhou, one clue led them to Henan province. Between February 4th and February 6th, 2016, he checked into a hotel there. During that time, surveillance cameras captured him withdrawing cash from an ATM. It became the last clear public image of Wu Xieyu for years. After that, he seemed to vanish completely. To locate him, police quickly issued a revolt notice and asked the public for information. The cross-province manhunt was now underway. After the notice was released, Wu Xieyu became even more cautious. He knew police were already looking for him. Leaving the country was no longer an option. He stopped traveling under his real identity. No flights, no high-speed trains, nothing that recalled his real name. Instead, he moved between cities by long-distance bus and unofficial rides. He rarely stayed anywhere for long. He kept moving, avoiding attention. He still had the money, 1.44 million yuan, borrowed from relatives and friends. Most of it went to fake IDs, temporary housing, and basic living expenses. Every expense had one purpose: buying more time. By the second half of 2016, after moving from place to place, Wu Xieyu eventually settled in Chongqing. The city worked in his favor, built on mountains with complex terrain. It was difficult to track anyone there. Chongqing was crowded, fast-moving, and easy to disappear into. There, he lived under different names, including Zhou Rong and Zhang Weijing. Most people around him simply called him Xiaorong. No one knew who he really was. His life was divided between day and night. By day, he worked as a private tutor at a local training center, teaching English, philosophy, and economics. He told people he had graduated from a top university in China. At night, he moved between KTV clubs and bars. He worked as a club host, sometimes drinking and socializing with customers. He sang, drank, and spent time with them. People liked his appearance and the way he carried himself. He slowly built a group of regular customers. The money was good. Most of his co-workers had little formal education. He was just a young man who can talk about deeper topics and sing English songs. No one would have linked him to a nationwide wanted suspect. He even used 2 WeChat accounts to separate his life. One was for nightlife promotions, videos, and customer chats. The other was for politics, economics, and history articles. Keeping his old reading habits to distance himself from his past, he changed his appearance. He grew his hair out, then his beard. He gained weight and changed his glasses. Even his voice and way of speaking slowly shifted. Someone who once knew him might not have recognized him, but the pleasure never really went away. At times, it turned darker. He became increasingly unrestrained, moving through different women and casual sexual encounters. In Shanghai, he became close to a sex worker and even considered marriage. At the same time, he maintained the appearance of a normal working life, going to the gym with co-workers, getting haircuts, and enjoying late-night meals. But it was only a surface. Beneath it, he was always prepared to disappear and carried more than 30 fake ideas. If he saw police nearby, he would instinctively avoid them. For years, he lived with one constant fear: getting caught. But eventually, that fear became routine, until April 20, 2019, at Chongqing Jiangbei Airport. He was seen off a friend when an upgraded facial recognition system flagged him. The match rate was over 98%. Police arrested him on the spot. After 3 years and 9 months on the run, it finally came to an end. But the story didn't really end there, because the real question was never how he escaped. It was why he committed the murder. Wu Xieyu was born in 1994 and grew up in what seemed like a lovely family. His parents had a close relationship. His mother was gentle and quietly selfless, spending most of her life caring for his chronically ill father. Wu Xieyu was an excellent student. Every time he ranked first, his father would light up with pride. Back then, his parents were his entire world. But it didn't last. His father died, and something in him broke. What followed wasn't just a grief, it was science. No more meaning behind his achievements. Life felt empty. At some point, he began thinking about suicide, but there was something heavier: anger. When his father became critically ill, treatment was eventually stopped. He believed it was due to lack of money and that relatives had failed to help. Whether it was true or not, the feeling stayed with him. It turned into resentment. Years later, in court, he admitted that part of the reason he scammed relatives out of money was revenge. Then his thinking began to narrow. He started believing his mother felt the same way he did, that without his father, life had lost its meaning. There was no conversation, no confirmation, only assumption. One memory stayed with him. His mother once mentioned, almost in passing, that a singer she liked had died. For most people, it meant nothing, but he took it differently, and instead of asking her, he made the decision for her. On July 10, 2015, at just 21 years old, Wu Xieyu killed his mother. Investigators later found signs of planning. The timing was deliberate. It was the start of summer break. His mother's school had closed, and no one would notice her absence. His birthday was October 7th, the reverse of July 10th, a detail he later described as a hidden signature. He had also installed an alarm system in the apartment. According to his later statement, he planned to take his own life when police arrived. In his mind, death was not escape, it was a reunion with his father and mother. But what followed didn't match that narrative. He covered her face with a portrait. He couldn't look at her. Then he fled, using money obtained through deception. He lived on the run, spending, gambling, buying lottery tickets. Hundreds of thousands of yen disappeared. The contradiction was hard to ignore. If it was about reunion, why run? During the trial, he admitted he had been arrogant. He claimed his original intention was simply to free his mother in this way. He apologized, said he wanted a chance to make things right, but it's too late. In my view, Wu Xieyu's crime was never caused by a single reason. He spent his whole life living up to others' expectations, the perfect student, the obedient son, never truly allowed to be himself. After his father's death, the only emotional support he had was gone, leaving years of pressure and emotional repression, with nowhere to go. In that suffocating state, he slowly began to see himself as someone who could save his mother. What he called liberation was perhaps just a justification for an extreme act, the breaking point of a life spent pretending to be perfect. So what do you think? Was this really about saving her from suffering, or just an excuse to escape justice? At the first trial, evidence of his planning, fraud, and actions while on the run was presented in court. He was found guilty of intentional homicide, fraud, and illegal trade of identity documents, and sentenced to death. He appealed. During the second trial, he wrote a letter expressing regret and a desire to live and make amends, but the appeal was rejected. The original sentence was upheld. On January 31, 2024, Wu Xieyu was executed. Nearly 9 years after the crime began, the case came to an end. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Behind our story, the truth waits. I'm Leah. Thanks for watching. Take care and see you next time.